coolest part of the show.
Hey, hi folks. I'm back this week. And I'm Rick Brusuelas. With Joe Carlton. We're the hosts of the TSA Thursday Checkdown. There is never a off season in fantasy football. So each week we bring in talented guests to help you, the fantasy football player, get better as players, but also to have more fun. Tonight, we have a very special guest, Rachel, who many people on Twitter know better as Tootsiepop 6. Hi, Rachel.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
Doing well. Rachel is well known in fantasy football as being a positive light, whether it's through her great fantasy football content or through the encouragement that she gives to new players who are just getting into fantasy football. So we're really excited to talk with Rachel about her story and especially how she is encouraging more women to play fantasy football. So welcome, Rachel. We are really happy to have you as a guest.
I'm happy to be here, guys.
And we're going to talk more fantasy football. Obviously, we're a fantasy football podcast, but I think it would be great just to get the folks to get a little bit more information about yourself so they can know you a little bit better. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, like what's your background?
Well, I live in Minnesota, so I'm a Vikings fan. I like to consider myself a late bloomer to football in general. I started watching maybe around 2018. Didn't really watch growing up. My family isn't really big into sports and whatnot, but I just like Vikings were having a good season that year, and just in the grocery store there'd be a lot of like merchandise and people talking about the Vikings. I'm like, I better start paying attention. There's something going on here, and just like the community engagement with that. So I started watching, and then the Minneapolis Miracle happened, and I got to be a part of that, to watch that and be part of the fandom. And it was just been exciting. So yeah, I'm a Vikings fan, and I started playing fantasy football in 2019 via work league. Just people were talking about it. I'm like, okay, what is this? Can I play? And then I just dove head first.
So, and kind of like what led you to fantasy football?
Just hearing the people talk about it at work. So I got in just a casual work league. I didn't know what I was doing at all. I picked up Adam Thielen in the first round, which, I picked him a little early, than you would in the draft in that year. But, I had to get my guy. Like, I had to get my guy, I'm a big Adam Thielen fan and still am. He's my number.
I like him. I had a Kirk Cousins Adam Thielen stack in 2018 that took me pretty far. So
right,
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, and last year he killed it, and like everyone was like, he's washed. I'm like, did you guys see what he did last year? Like,
as long as he stays healthy,
right, and he's back this year. He just signed another contract with them, with the Panthers, and I mean, I'm sad he's not with Minnesota, but I'm happy for him and his family. Where was I going? I got distracted by the Thielen. So yeah, I started fantasy football 2019, just a work league, and then I found fantasy Twitter because I needed to learn more about how to play this game because I had no clue what I was doing. I know I botched the draft. I had Adam Thielen first round, which is a little early. I reached for him, and then I remember I had Kalen Ballage on my team. Like, who? Michael Gallup was another guy on my first fantasy roster. So I didn't really do that well that year. So I dove into fantasy Twitter. Like, I need to learn everything. I found the Ball Blast podcast by Kate and Michelle Majuk, and that was game changer for me. And they are everything to me. That's how I learned fantasy football. That's how I gained the confidence to believe that I could learn how to play, and I had a place at the table to play. Yeah.
I tell you, I've been at a couple of Houston live drafts, so I've had a chance to meet and draft against both Kate and Michelle. And you are right; they are superstars, not just as fantasy players and fantasy analysts, but they're just superstar people. So I could easily see, how you follow Kate and Michelle as well as their great inspirations. I ask this question of everybody that comes on, and I know that I get into trouble with having too many leagues, but how many leagues do you play in per year?
So 2019 was my first year, so I just had one league, and then last year was my 6th year. I had 17 managed leagues, and that's
Wow.
too many. That is way
It
too
is.
many.
It's
I
too
learned
many.
I'm gonna have to cut back because it got to be like a job, every week to set the rosters and do the waiver. Oh my God, waiver night is horrible with 17. So it kind of takes the fun away. I mean, I still did it. I grinded. I had to pay attention to everything, but I'm gonna pull back a little bit this year. Maybe do a
Yeah.
lot more best balls.
At one point I was up to 25, and you're right, it just isn't fun anymore, in part because you all have a player on one team, but your opponents have the same player, and so you don't know whether you should be rooting for them or not. But also it's a lot of roster management and free agents that you have to keep track of. So I've cut
It's
down
hard
to
not to make a
15.
mistake. It's hard not to make a
Right.
mistake and forget
Oh,
something
I
somewhere.
totally did one of the last week, one of the weeks at the end of the season. I totally forgot to change a player that was out. Like, how did I miss this? Because I thought I was so diligent, but it happens when you have 17 managed leagues. It just happens. So I
Yes.
can't do that.
Now you were careful to say manage, so I'm going to go ahead and guess that you probably have best ball leagues that you're not counting among that group.
Right. Yeah.
So how many best ball leagues do you
I
say
think
you're in?
last year I counted 56.
Wow. But that's good
That's up
because
there. Yeah.
some of them I'm sure are like the Fantasy Cares Eliminator
Yes.
leagues.
Oh, yes. I
And
had a lot of those, like 20 of those. Because I've got to be with them. I got to be with that person. I got to be in Lindsay Rhodes. I got to be in Kate's, and I got to be in so and so's. Yeah.
we were in Kate's together. So,
Yes.
and I think
That's right. We were
you
up
kept
toward the
going
top.
past me. So.
Yes. Yes.
That's like a 17 team slow draft. You have to have like 10 or 15 of them going.
Yeah, but also the interaction aspect, and that's really what makes fantasy football as cool of a thing as it is that there's so much community. You get a chance to do the chats, and hopefully the person who's the host, like Kate was a host, they're active in the chat, encouraging people, maybe teasing people. It just becomes much more fun that way, and you get to meet people. And I think one of the leagues I was in, the guy that was in the movie That Thing You Do, the drummer in that movie.
Tom Everett Scott, you were in his?
I was in his. Yeah.
Nice.
That was
I
a
was
pretty
in
good
the
movie.
James Rodays. He had one.
I have to admit, he was probably a little less involved than Kate and some of the other people.
I
So I
bet.
probably was in there trying to get an autograph or something. Well, and also I know you started getting into fantasy football a little bit more seriously with respect to becoming an analyst and doing things on podcasts. Kind of like, can you walk us through that process that you went through?
Right. Yeah. So the summer of 2023, I just started writing fantasy football diaries, just kind of my journey in the fantasy football space. And then I transitioned and started working with In Between Media, and I did Prize Picks prop bets. I did some entertainment pieces there as well. That was a lot of fun to stretch my creative wings that way, and other start sit articles. And then I started doing podcasts starting last March to be a guest on them. I did Casey Kasem's podcast as my very first podcast. She's awesome. So yeah, if you know her, she's amazing, and you got to meet her, Rick, at Canton.
I actually got a chance to meet her at the Houston live
Oh,
draft.
great. Yeah.
She didn't play in the league,
Jeez,
but she came
Houston
down
got some
just to
bangers,
visit.
huh?
Yeah,
She,
Rick is like, we're like name dropping.
yeah.
I'm trying to name drop and he's picking them up.
making the Boston draft look like nothing. I'm like, I thought there were some big names there, but I guess Houston's
I think
were the big.
Scott was at the Boston
He
draft, so
was,
you
yes, he
probably had a
was.
pretty big name there too. So
I was
Yeah,
afraid to talk to him. I don't know.
Oh,
He looked like he had a long week traveling, and
I bet,
I
yeah.
was like, "Hi, Scott. This is great. I love what," and then like I went away. Like I didn't want to pester him.
Yeah,
Kinda.
I'm spoiled in Minnesota because Scott Fish is from Minnesota, so he's at the live here in Minnesota. So I see him often, and the times I've gone to Canton, we've been on the same flight. So I've gotten to know Scott over these years. He's an amazing person in the fantasy space. Yeah. So last March, I did my very first podcast. So we're 1 year of me doing podcasts. So look at like my 1 year anniversary here coming to this one. Um, and it's just been a lot of fun to interact with different people and share my story. And then this past November, a couple months ago, I joined Football Guys.
yes, and congratulations. I mean, that is such an awesome team. We know a bunch of folks on the Football Guys roster, and they're great. And tell us what you do for Football Guys.
I'm a writer over there, so we did some start sit at the end of the season. So we did a couple of articles with that. I've been doing some roundtables now in the off season. In the beginning of this past month, I did a women's roundtable, and I highlighted a couple women in the community, and they introduced how they got into fantasy football and their goals in the space. And part 2 of that roundtable is going to drop very soon, and we're going to talk about a player that we believe is going to exceed expectations in 2025. So look for that over at Football Guys. It's going to drop very soon.
Awesome. And we love when we get early news and, we can drop, news breakers on our show. So I appreciate that. And also, and I would be remiss to, one of the things that you're probably best known for is the Unwind series. And in fact, you're wearing an Unwind shirt. So, why don't you go ahead and tell us about that? What led you to it, what it involves?
Yeah, so that launched in October 2023. We just started. I just started having some after the expo that year. I was just missing all my friends there. I got really close with Emma Martinez. We call each other besties. And I was really missing her. I'm like, she lives in Mexico, way over on the West Coast, and I'm in Minnesota. I have to wait every August to see her again. Like, this is not fair. Is there another way that we can connect? And I just started having these ideas about, like, what about Zoom? I mean, in COVID, we learned about all the virtual options there are out there, how technology is amazing to connect people, and why don't we use that? So I created Unwind, and we started meeting on Zoom with women of fantasy football. And so we met a couple times a month, and we've been going. We've had 23 different Zoom events since it started. I'm going to have another one in probably next month. I haven't scheduled it yet, but that's coming soon. Unwind people, so look for that. So it's just a lot of fun. And like last year, we had a lot of best ball leagues that we did together. We did some live drafts together. It's just hanging out. We're talking about fantasy football. We're talking about football teams. We're talking about women's health. We're talking about what's going on in our life. And on these Zoom meets, and we also have a Twitter chat. And I always say what happens at Unwind stays at Unwind. So it's a safe place for women to gather, wherever they come from, whatever they're dealing with. And then we're just united by our love for fantasy football.
And that's such a great story. And again, I think one of the things that, we're seeing more and more is the, increased desire to, be more, inclusive and supportive of everybody, so that everybody could have a good time. I know we had Wendy Early as a guest on a Tuesday show that I do, where she was talking about Battle of the Sexes, and the fact that one of the reasons they did that league was to try to provide a place where women would not feel as threatened and would be able to ask questions that they might not if they were worried about, oh, I'm going to look like I'm inexperienced, or it might be a dumb question that they're asking. And so instead, to be able to provide a place where again, questions are safe, and also be able to talk about things outside of fantasy football, talking about women's issues or just issues that women are facing is such a gosh, that's such a wonderful thing. So, I applaud you for doing that, and it obviously is bringing more and more people into fantasy football. I think you occasionally also have men, perhaps, on the Unwind series.
So I call those Huddle Up. It's a different version. I call
Okay,
it Huddle
good.
Up for the co-ed Zoom. I started that last summer, so I've had a couple of those where I'll bring some different people from the fantasy community, and just it's the same idea as a hangout session. We just talk about whatever. It's just or no, there's never an agenda for either the Unwind or the Huddle Up. We just talk about whatever, and it just flows naturally.
And lastly, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the events and some of the things you're doing, but one of the and just an observation I've made over time is that folks just are drawn to you. You are such a bright light and a positive light within our community, and in part because I think you really do reach out, and you're very approachable. It seems like whenever there's an expo or some other event, people are probably lined up around the building to try to take pictures with you. So, and I'm sure it's because you're encouraging that. And so, again, that's really something that, I applaud you for being that available and open, and hoping I'll be in one of those pictures as we get closer to the expo. So, and in fact, that kind of gets us to the question about the expo. I'm assuming you're going to be going.
Yes, I'm planning on I have not booked my flight yet, but I have my hotel and I got work off, all the important things. Flight can come later.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I was remiss to ask this question earlier, but you mentioned work. What do you do outside of fantasy football?
I work in the healthcare industry. I kind of keep my world separate, but yeah, I'm also passionate in that world. And I close that door and I'm come home and I'm here talking fantasy football.
Awesome. And, again, sometimes when I know that, I find it a challenge. Last week I wasn't here because of a work trip. But, again, to be able to balance, all the things you're doing in fantasy football with the things outside of fantasy football, I think, shows, how organized you are as a person. And so, again, I applaud that, because there's plenty of times where I'm pulling my hair out.
Oh, I'm definitely pulling the hair out. Yes, but you just got to keep trucking.
Awesome. And then also Scott Fishbowl. I think we've mentioned Scott Fishbowl, but
Yes.
and you were at the Minnesota or Minneapolis live draft.
Yes, the last 2 years, it's 14 and 13, I was at the live draft. And I've been in Scott Fishbowl since 11, so 4 years.
And have you ever thought about perhaps going to some of the other events to spread
Yeah.
the Tootsiepop around?
Yes, I've been exploring like what I want to do this year if I want to check out a different live draft destination. I would love to go to one of their international ones, but flight prices are really astronomical right now. But I would love that. That would be a dream someday.
Yeah, in fact, I just talked to someone who's based in the UK, and it's fascinating to find out the different things that they're doing to be able to watch. I mean, we just click on the TV and sit down from, well, in my case, I'm in Houston, so from 12 o'clock on and just watch
Right.
football. But they have to put a little bit more effort into it.
Right.
And,
Like take a nap and then they're up in the middle of the night. And yeah, I have some friends in Unwind from UK as well. And yeah, it's fascinating.
we know that your favorite team is the Minnesota Vikings.
It is.
And I ask this just because I'm, not very close to the Vikings. So, this gives me an opportunity to learn more about what's going on with the Vikings. So, any thoughts on what they're going to look like in 2025?
They are going to be off the charts with all the free agents that they've signed so far and getting the defense lined up. And we got JJ McCarthy. He's going to be healthy. He's going to be our franchise quarterback. We still got Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. It's going to be amazing for football and for fantasy football.
And any players you're thinking that they're going to be able to draft? What is your expectation for the team at this point
Yeah.
with that pick?
Well, right now they only have 4 picks, so I'm nervous. I don't know. I don't know what to think if they're going to try to get more picks out of it, because we do have the pick 24 in the first round, and I'm hoping we keep it. But I know there might be advantage in trying to get more picks.
Move back, yeah.
Yeah, but I know we should get like a cornerback or a safety with one of our early picks. We need to kind of get some depth in that area.
Well, it does look like
Now, no.
We'll
What
be
would be the
touching
point?
on that in the
You-
free
you can-
agency part of our
You can have
call.
him back.
He would have to be a backup, right? If they got him, he would be the backup. Would
Or
be my
maybe a
guess.
coach.
Yeah, and I don't know. Would he agree to that? That's what it's like. Can't see with him. He's kind of narcissistic. I don't want to be mean or anything, but a guy like that, he wants to be starter. I mean, the
Yeah.
only chance is if there's ever any concern with JJ McCarthy's recovery.
Yeah, and we'll go ahead and cross that one off the list of free agents that we were going to discuss. Although I think it was, really his own, his own people's, spreading that rumor out there with hope that it might draw some more attention, more attraction to him. But no, I actually have a hard time thinking where Aaron Rodgers would fit anywhere. I hate to say it, I'm pretty much over.
Right? And we can't just assume that he's going to take a team to the playoffs. He's older. He's not prime Aaron Rodgers. So what's going to automatically guarantee that he's going to take a team to the playoffs? So we bring him in, and then what?
Yeah. You did mention JJ McCarthy, and I have him as my quarterback on a Devi team that has been going for a few years now. And I'm, keeping my fingers crossed that he's going to be ready to play game 1. Is that what you're hearing?
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah, that everything's tracking well, and he's been practicing, and yeah, he's the guy.
And they did bring in a backup, but or have they brought in a backup yet?
Not yet. They just have Rippin or something. So they need to sign somebody at some point, just for insurance and for backup.
Well, again, I agree with you. I think that they're going to be very good, and I would not be surprised if they, compete with the Eagles to be the Super Bowl, representative from the NFC. I don't see any other teams really close enough to be able to compete with them. So, and I know JC is going to be rooting them on. I'm sorry, Joe.
I like the Rams' chances still in the NFC.
You do?
Yeah.
Without Cup now, though.
They have Devontae Adams.
Yeah. What do you think he'll
I think he's better than Cup.
Oh yeah, he's good. But do you think he'll mesh well with that team? I don't know.
I do like the Rams defense.
I think he does. I'm liking that pickup. I think him and Nakua is gonna give defenses fits for sure. I think.
And you're definitely touching on my man crush of Puka Nakua. I drafted him, I don't know, like 7 different teams when he was in the rookie draft. Just by luck, I liked his name, to be really honest. It wasn't by any deep insight I had on him as a player. And so, and I have another player that I have got tucked away as this year's Puka Nakua. So
I know who it
hold
is.
back on that one. Since,
you're holding back.
It's his other crush. It's his other.
It's my new man crush. And okay, Jack Besh. Okay, I've said it.
Okay.
Everybody's now going to be rushing out to draft him everywhere I'm in. So
I have a JJ McCarthy question for you, Rachel.
Okay, Joe.
So last year, Sam Darnold threw for 35 touchdowns, and he went over 4,000 yards. Do you see JJ McCarthy matching that this year?
It might be slightly lower, but they have Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, the 1-2 punch.
Yeah, the Jordan Mason. That when I saw them pick up Jordan Mason, that's what I thought. I was like, JJ McCarthy's probably not. They're not gonna. They want to be a little more careful with the football. So that's what that screamed to me. So I figured I'd ask the question for fantasy football. For
Right.
are we targeting JJ and redraft? Probably not.
Probably for like a second quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not for not in a 1 QB to be your
Right.
starter. No,
Right.
I don't think so.
And I think Jordan Mason is a good pickup regardless. I mean, I think he, looked really good with San Francisco, and so and I guess last year there was expectations that there was perhaps a chance that someone else was going to be the running back in Minnesota, and that never worked out, and so Chandler disappeared. So now
I held on to him in Dynasty last year too, like at least up until like towards the end of the season. I was like, I can't believe I held on to this guy.
It was deceiving in 2023. I mean, he like outshone Madison, but I think that just proved to us that Madison wasn't all that.
Yeah, but Chandler also, he super fast, and I think he was doing special teams, kick returner, as I recall.
Right. Yeah.
And I was a little disappointed, but again, we live and we learn. But Mason's a lot more, I think, the type of running back that Jordan Mason, yes, that he's the type of running back that could really be that kind of working back that's going to be able.
I think he's gonna allow Aaron Jones to do what Aaron Jones really does, and not worry.
Right.
Aaron Jones doesn't have to worry about being a workhorse running back.
Right.
He's much better as a almost like
I
call them gadget running backs. But
Yeah, well, you can do a little bit of everything. I was nervous at first. I'm like, what does it mean for Aaron Jones? Because all in on Aaron Jones. I love him to death. But I think you're right. I think it's complementary. It's not going to take away from anything. It's only just going to be additive.
Yeah. Although Mason is a better receiving back than I think folks gave him credit, going into last year. So, but yeah, I definitely agree. Aaron Jones is a really talented receiving back as well as a good running back. So split might be something like what, 60-40, 70-30,
Right, 70-30 at least to start with. And
yeah.
I guess just hopefully Aaron stays healthy. It just it's hard with as the running backs get older. I hate talking about that. When I started Dynasty, I'm like, why are we so ageist? But it's a fact, I guess. It's a fact with running backs, especially.
Although we're seeing more of the older running back that's, at least in this past year.
Aaron Jones is always, his workload has always needed to be managed, though, I think, from early in his career in Green Bay up until now.
And maybe that's what we're learning about running backs is the 1-2 punch. It's not always going to be the bell cow. If you have the two, then you can kind of manage it, as you say. And so the number one doesn't get burnt out as easily.
Well, and, we already answered that question. So, Joe, do you have any questions that you wanted to ask?
No, I tossed them in there already. I got them in there. I figured, we were moving along naturally, so I didn't wait for that point to ask my questions. But we can move on to free agency if you want. I think we covered pretty much everything up until there.
Sure. Okay.
All right. Miles Sanders to the Dallas Cowboys. He joins Javonte Williams. Does this mean the Cowboys won't draft a running back early?
That is a very good question. Because they
we'd like to say
it's just like that was a choice. Each time when both the guys like, well, you got Javonte and now you have Miles. Like, that's definitely a choice you made there. I think it's good for Javonte, definitely. I mean, he was really high acclaimed when he came into the NFL, and last year was not great at all. And maybe he can have a resurgence from that. And he's definitely good in the receiving game. I'm really excited for Javonte this is his chance for a fresh start. Miles Sanders, I'm not buying a resurgence of Miles Sanders. I mean, he'll be good there for depth. So, yeah, it's just a matter of where they want to draft a running back to fill into that room.
Yeah, because they have other holes in their lineup too. And we talked about wide receivers. There's there's one where, there's a good possibility that they look for a wide receiver, maybe Matthew Golden or maybe a bouquet. So
If Tech falls, Tech could fall too, but I don't think he does.
And
But he could.
Dak is great passing, Dak is magical when he's passing to CD, and it's just, that's really where the Cowboys shine even more.
And yeah, you're right, because Dak has been hurt a little bit, but I think that this is going to be a year where he kind of like reinserts himself as a passer. He also earlier in his career, he was actually a decent runner too. So in fact, one year I think he had like one of the highest touchdown rates for quarterbacks. He was kind of the Jalen Hurts of his time. So hopefully that obviously isn't going to be true now. He's a little older and
he had that ankle injury that I think kind of affected that.
Yeah. So and Cooper Kupp
to the Seahawks.
I like it. I dig it. I think it'll be good for him. I mean, he's very talented and he deserves a shot to do. So it's interesting how that's going to work with JSN, because they're very similar players, but hopefully the Seahawks have a plan.
Well, it'll be curious whether he and Darnold will be having breakfast meetings. There were years where, I think I drafted Bobby Trees with the hope that he was going to be, impact player. And unfortunately, he wasn't invited to those breakfast meetings with Stafford and Kupp. So it'll be interesting to see how they bond together. Because Kupp's probably just got the season. I don't know what he signed as a contract, but he's probably
2 years.
pretty
I think
close.
It's a 2-year deal, right?
A 2-year contract with first year guaranteed.
Yeah, $12 million. I believe it's $12 million first year guarantee. It's like 17 guaranteed, 25 point something total, something like that. I don't know. I remember reading it last week, but I like the move. I'm in on this. Everybody, I seem to see a lot of people thinking Seattle's in a rebuild, and I kind of disagree with that. They were already built to win. Their defense could use a little improvement, but and I don't think Sam Darnold is the answer to them getting through the playoffs and getting to a Super Bowl, but he's a good starting point if they plan on drafting a quarterback to develop behind them in the next couple of years. That's an option. They could always trade if they feel strongly about somebody. They could trade up. And they have a lot of draft picks. I believe they have 10 draft picks inside the top 100. So I could see them addressing a lot of areas.
Especially offensive line.
Yeah. They got 2 great running backs, Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet. I think Kupp. I think that JSN they're gonna use him in multiple ways. I believe, I'm a personal believer that he is an elite wide receiver. He's the star there. He's still coming to fruition. So people are kind of underestimating the fact that he can do more than be a slot. I think his ADOT is going to go through the roof this year, and it's going to do wonders for his fantasy numbers. I'm drafting him anywhere I can take him, really. I have big I think he's going to have big target volume. I think he goes off because Cooper Kupp is there. We just got to hope that Cooper Kupp can stay healthy.
That's the key. Right? Yeah. But both Kupp and Darnold are kind of like got the chip on their shoulder and prove it. Kupp being released and Darnold having those really 2 bad games where it really counted. I'm not hurt, not at all. So they're both there. They're gonna want to prove their worth. And okay, Seahawks got them for a reason, so they're gonna come out blazing.
All right, moving on to Kareem Hunt re-signing with the Kansas City Chiefs. Does this increase the chances that the Chiefs stay with Pacheco or draft a running back early?
I've never been able to understand the Chiefs. They do weird things. But I think Hunt and Pacheco together are a nice combo. I mean, it was good last year. I have no complaints, but I can't read the Chiefs. My
only complaint is the fantasy football part. Like neither
Oh,
one.
yeah, knowing who to draft. Yeah, I'm staying away.
Yeah, that's what I
unless you
mean.
can get them cheap. Unless you can get them cheap. Yeah, because there's no way to say like who's gonna get more. We
Yeah,
don't know how Chiefs are gonna divide it, and they're gonna have a third guy come in.
the hard team to read offensively, like how it's going to play out. Other than Mahomes is going to win games. But
Yeah, JC Hunt's good at the goal line, so definitely
he is. He
that's
is.
a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah, I still have a few shares of Pacheco. In fact, a team I just picked up as an orphan from one of the charity leagues I just joined has Pacheco really as the only starting running back. So I'll knock on wood that they're not going to use a high pick. Although it's such a deep draft for running backs this year, using a high pick might mean a third or fourth round, and you're still getting a talented running back. So we'll see. But
No, I think the signing of Hunt definitely signals that they know that Pacheco is going to be back this year. I don't see them taking a running back. They wouldn't have signed Hunt if they were going to draft a running back, because they're in prime spot at the end of the first round to get a really, really good one if they wanted to. So I think it signals they're not going to go running back. I would hold Pacheco if I was you in Dynasty. Last year I traded him in the offseason for 2 second-round picks a little bit before the draft. So I was happy with that return. I knew it was time to get rid of him. I had a feeling that Kansas City was going to look to add another running back, so I got rid of him a while ago. But I think if you have him now, Rick, you got to hold him, because he's probably
yeah.
He's in a good situation, so you don't want. I wouldn't sell him unless somebody wows you with an offer.
Yeah, you always like having players on the Chiefs on your,
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're
contrary to my friend Rich and his disdain of Chiefs and Cowboy players. I agree with the Cowboy, although again, CeeDee Lamb, I guess that's a pretty decent Cowboy to say I'm gonna not go for CeeDee Lamb on my team either. But yeah, I definitely like having Chiefs players. They tend to play all the way through, into the playoffs and beyond. So,
but speaking of the Cowboys, I hope they do better this year. Last year was a bummer, wasn't it? It was like, what is happening? Why are you falling apart?
Well, I'm a Texan fan, so to be honest, it feels pretty good to see
you like
struggle. It's like, they're now the second, maybe the third best team in Texas right now. So I enjoy that.
But it's so bizarre.
That must be a fun rivalry, right? That's got to be a fun rivalry.
It is. It's like when it was the San Francisco versus the Cowboys. Now we're at least in-state rivalry is very fun to and as I said, we were always their week's little brother for quite a long time. So it feels good to actually be able to hold your head up high in the state, at least. Whether we get farther than the first round of the playoff this year, we'll see. But hey, also, what about we have Kyle Juszczyk?
You skipped over the Chargers offensive lineman Mekhi Becton from the Eagles. Offensive lineman signing for the Chargers, Rick.
Yeah.
How's that? Like it? It says this could be the best free agent signing. So why don't you tell me about that? You think it's the best free agent signing this week?
Well, again, Chargers offense is going to be, I think it's going to swing. It was expected to be overly running oriented. We actually saw a lot of passing out of the Chargers. But I do think that, strengthening that line is going to not only better protect Herbert, but, I think this is going to make their running game a better running game too. So, I think he was, the best player picked up as a free agent, but again, in fantasy football, we tend to look more at the, the skill position. So yeah, it was a good move, but I happen to like fullbacks.
Yeah, Kyle Juszczyk, he's definitely a staple over at the 49ers. So when they released him at first, I'm like, what the hell are you doing? But then they signed him again. Like, okay, that makes sense.
When I saw that, I'm not gonna lie, as a Patriots fan, my ears went I get like a dog,
beep, beep, beep.
like because he would be good for the Patriots because
Oh.
clearly we're not adding all these wide receivers all over the place. So a fullback will do us well, I think. Consolidate the offense a little bit, simplify it, add another backfield presence, and he can do things. He the defense has to pay attention to him.
But do you think other schemes can work him in, or do you think the 49ers have that special role made into their plan, their plays, or whatever? Or is he a special is he the special player, or are they creating the plays for him? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
not to flip a question.
He's I don't know. I just think he's very versatile. He's very good at what he does. He's like having another pair of eyes for the quarterback. He in McCaffrey as well. It's a guy. So when they stack the box against McCaffrey, it's a guy that has to get one of those guys has to account. He's going to take out at least one of those guys. So it just what he does for the overall offense. I think it was necessary for them to keep him based on the way Shanahan runs his offense.
Also, I have to think that there's a bit of that locker room presence that he adds to the team where he's much more valuable than just the yards and the carries.
Right.
Decent blocker too. So that's always a good thing, especially for, you mentioned, the running back, but also, helps protect, the quarterback. So.
And then his wife would have to make all new shirts.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, I mean, the viral presence, it also, it brings the hype for the team and whatever. What she does in the design is everything's all over social media with her, and like that would be a loss to the 49ers. Just like the Chiefs have Taylor, just to have the extra attention, media attention. It just helps.
And the 49ers, very good team, obviously, well coached, well managed, but also, and I'll mention Sniper Mel's favorite, George Kittle, a very good tight end. So I think that
he's great every year. He's good every year.
And a great presence, great locker room guy too. So, were there any other free agents you wanted to touch on?
There's one just next up. Are we all surprised that Aaron Rodgers is still a free agent? I'm not surprised either. I actually think he's going to retire. I'm going contrarian. Yeah, I don't think he signs with anybody this year and he retires.
I think he definitely likes attention. So I think whatever's happening, he's enjoying elongating all this attention.
And Stephon Diggs was visiting New England today. You have any thoughts on that, Rachel?
I like that. I think that's good.
I
mean, he's a talented player. He's not washed at all. I think he needs a
Nope.
restart. He needs a restart somewhere. And I mean, sometimes he's got to get out of his own way with attitude, but that's a lot of players.
And at least early on with the Texans, he actually was a good locker room presence and good sideline presence. And even during, after he was first injured, he was there, I think helping, the younger wide receivers on the team. I think he'd be a great person to add to the Patriots. Obviously still he'd be their most skilled wide receiver automatically. And
definitely. Yeah.
They 100% need him. Like if they sign him, I would be so happy.
Yeah, I think he's grown a lot over the years with his maturity and his leadership and his talent. His talent's always been unmatched, but
I think a change of New England Patriots. It's just like I see him fitting well with the team. That's
I like it. Yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead. Take us into.
I was just going to say, I want to make sure that we're able to talk about some of the other topics, including, how, we could help the new fantasy football player be more successful. So, Joe, you want to start us off on that?
What are the common problems or challenges for new players?
I think, well, first of all, just find a group of people that you're comfortable with. It can be a scary world, if you get involved with somebody that in a group that's all advanced and they're all, doing deranged and crazy things. It's a little intimidating as a new player. You want to be around a group that people are going to answer your questions and not try to, pull one over you. I know my first year I had a really bad trade sent to me at like week 5. It took me a second because, I was gullible. I was almost going to take him like, wait a second. What is he doing? He's trying to pull, so you're going to always have those people that are going to try to pull it over you. Like, she's new. I'm going to do this because I can get away with it. But no.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
And I think people tend to forget that, one is supposed to be fun. And winning, yeah, sure, that, adds to the fun. But especially in a dynasty where you're going to be with those other 11 people for hopefully at least a couple of years.
Right.
I think you sometimes have to think the long game, where you're going to, want to make trades that benefit both teams.
Right. Yeah.
Less focus on quote winning trades and more focus on making moves that makes your team better. And, of course, you're going to have to, make a deal that's going to help the other team be better too, or you're going to find you're not going to have trading partners after that.
Right. Or yeah, one of maybe my second year, there was the same guy. So I mean, we did a really good trade. I can't remember. I gave him one of my wide receivers, but I had good depth there. It was a good guy, and I got Patterson from him, and it was the year that Patterson was just really a monster for fantasy. So it was beneficial for both sides. He needed a receiver, I needed a running back, and that's what you want in fantasy. You want something that's going to be mutually beneficial for both sides, and just everyone to have the best team that they can have, and then just whatever happens after that.
That's it. I like that.
Yeah.
What I'll say about new players is don't just mull over the score. Oh, that's the scoring system. Up, that's the roster. You got to really understand the scoring system. Pay attention, like read it. Receptions, point, the 10-point yard, the 10 yards for a point, everything. Read. Understand the roster requirements, the starting lineup requirements, and the scoring system is the only, like, if you can't get past that, then really none of the other stuff that we talked about really matters. So pay attention to that first and foremost.
I had a friend who was newer to fantasy, and she was drafted in a 1 QB league, and she didn't realize it was 1 QB. So she took two quarterbacks back in a row, back together, and no one said anything, and it's just like, if someone's new, just kind of be like, hey, this is 1 QB, or, just kind of help them out. Don't just try to, let people drown. I mean, that's not nice.
Yeah.
Well, and you kind of touched a little bit on that, and maybe it slides right into the next question, which is, fantasy football has a language of its own. Like most new things, people need to be able to recognize things like you mentioned, super flex, or best ball, and how do you work with people, or how do you advise people to be able to understand some of this special verbiage we use in fantasy football?
Well, I know, like, in the pieces that we write over a different website, like, you want to spell out points per reception, not just write PPR, because people are like, what is PPR? You want to be as clear and to the point, because you don't know, not everyone's going to be advanced is going to read it. You're going to have, people with 0 to 100 years of experience. You want to be able to relate to everybody equally. So it just takes extra clarifications when you're writing things out, when you're explaining things. Yeah, just don't use all these acronyms that people don't understand, kind of be more specific.
Context matters.
And also, as the player, don't be afraid to ask the questions. Don't just sit there and be like, I feel dumb. I don't know. Just ask.
Yeah, no question is a dumb
a lot of
question.
a lot of people are going to be welcoming, and they don't know that you don't know sometimes. So just don't be afraid to ask. Be like, I'm sorry. Like, what does this mean?
Okay. How do you approach the draft, and what advice would you give the new player preparing for a draft?
So like you said, you want to understand the roster construction. That's very key. You want to go and know what you need to fill your lineup. But you're going to be able to be flexible because you don't know what the other people are going to take. So you're going to be able to pivot and adjust. You may be 2 picks away and you want to get this one guy, but then he's taken before you. What's your next move? You got to be ready and be always thinking like, okay, if that happens, I'm going to do this. And just always be proactive.
Okay. So basically touched on roster management already. Any specifics you want to talk about roster management? Is there a specific strategy you like the most, or you just take what the draft gives you?
I think I default to kind of like a balanced strategy. I don't zero RB makes me nervous. I know a lot of people swear by it, but I can't do it
It
because
does me
if you
too, but
don't have a good running back, then you just really struggle.
yeah,
Unless you're lucky, unless you get lucky, or maybe I haven't finessed that strategy yet, and I can keep trying. But it makes me so nervous that I don't like that panic. So I tend to do a balanced approach that kind of works best for me.
awesome. Any advice for free agency? The blind bidding, the fab, managing fab. Newer players definitely. I know for me, it took probably 2, maybe 3 good seasons to really get a feel to the opponents. Like, you learn your
Right.
opponents, and
it's
so
gonna
you
change.
learn.
You
Yeah,
you
and it
know
does change.
Joe Blow is gonna be really aggressive at 1 week, and next week he's conservative and like, wait, what just happened? Like, so you got again, you have to be able to pivot and adjust. You got to know what your spending limit is and what you're comfortable with spending your fab. And like, okay, I only want to spend this much on this guy. If I don't get him, I don't get him. You just got to be comfortable with that. Or if it's someone you really, really want, you're just going to go all in and just be comfortable that you're not going to have fab left for the rest of the season. So it's just kind of balancing the risk that involves with that. But on the other side, if you're a commissioner, I really like the fab a lot more than the other way where,
So do I. Yeah, I agree.
because it kind of makes it an even playing field. So it takes people like, what are you willing to invest? Is this the player that you really, really want? You're going to go all in on, not just have that player go to the person that's with the losing record.
So the one thing I always try to do with fab, and again, there's never a hard and fast rule, but generally I try to spend as much of my fab as possible early in the season. When you're going to get the most return for that, obviously you don't want to spend all your money on one player and then go through the whole rest of the season with injuries and bye weeks, challenges where you aren't able to add any more players. But I'll tend to be aggressive in that first week because if it's a player I really want, and a lot of times that player that slips through the drafts all of a sudden becomes a very valuable commodity, I'll go hard and not worry less about am I overspending, because that way, at least hopefully, short of injury to that player I've added, I'll get the most return on the value on that acquisition.
Awesome.
And tight ends are hit or miss. That's why
yeah.
I was going to say I like kickers better than tight ends most times. So.
That's true. It's more reliability there.
What I like to do with the fab is on a per team basis. I don't really have a general strategy. I look if my starting lineup is cemented pretty good and I did a good job drafting, and really the only thing I have to worry about is bye weeks. I'll tend to be conservative early on until unless there's like a player that I know like I need to add. He's definitely like worth adding. It's going to upgrade the best spot on my bench. I go conservative. if there's, I like to keep one spot on my roster if the bench is deep enough. If I play in a 20 player roster, single quarterback, I like to keep one spot that I just keep rotating. I'll pick up guys on the cheap, and if they pan out, they do. If not, I drop them for the next guy cheap. And they're not necessarily, they're guys that I'm trying to sniff out like a week or two ahead, kind of like what you do with bye weeks. But I'm doing that all year with that one spot. That's what I will say about what I like about Fab is you can kind of do that if the benches are deep enough.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Joe. I completely agree that the player that's on the end of your roster, whatever the roster size is probably not ever going to get into a game. So why not rotate it, especially running backs where an injury is more apt to make that player an impact player, or even a quarterback. You never know, I hate to say you never can have enough quarterbacks as someone who's gone through seasons with just one and a super flex. So it's, I'd rather take a stab at that than having like a 6th or 7th wide receiver who I'm never going to play. So rotating that last spot is a great approach.
So what would you say to encourage a new player who just started playing their first year and they had a bad year, they lost, they're thinking about not joining again? How are you talking them out of that?
I just got to keep trying different things, trying different approaches. I mean, every year is going to be different. You have different players, you have different schemes, different things are going to happen. I mean, I bombed my first year. I had no clue. I think, a big part for me was finding fantasy Twitter. So find whatever community that is, whether it's your league mates, and that's what makes it fun. To come back, and even if you're losing, like you want to be part of the action, part of the conversation, something to talk about other than the boring stuff of paying your bills, that we're all doing and dealing with this economy. So it's just, find that community, and I think that keeps people more engaged. And then keep asking your questions, keep willing to try things, stretch yourself. Try different formats as you get couple years into playing. Don't be afraid to try Dynasty. Don't be afraid to try IDP. I am not an expert at either, but I'm trying and I love them. Guillotine is a different kind of adrenaline. That's a lot of fun. I love that. Best ball is fun for any newcomer. Try best ball if you don't want to, have the extra stress. Get used to the drafting and try different drafts with best ball. Start there. That might be a really good recommendation for newcomers. And I know Anne had a question earlier. What was it again? Yes, Anne. I am never not a fan of drafts. I love drafting even before the NFL draft. I think it's spicy to see where things are the ADP is and where things are before you know all the final results. I really love drafting. I did a mock draft last night. It's a lot of fun. And then we have the Stacy with Fantasy and Frames is doing a women's best ball tournament right now. I'm doing my draft this Saturday. Some other women did last night and Tuesday already. So I'm excited. I really love drafts before the NFL draft.
Agree. I couldn't agree more. You just the galaxy braining that you do, yes. and it's just fun to try to put the pieces together like without all of the information.
Right. And like you're going with your recency bias of what you learned from last season, but you're balancing it with what you're projecting for this year, and then with the chaos of the free agency it's very fun. I really love it. If anybody has a draft, hit me up. I'm willing to draft.
It requires you draft differently for sure, because in those mid to late rounds, you start taking upside picks. You don't want like just bye week villain people. You want upside, and especially in best ball, you want the spike week people with spike week potential. All right. Anything unique or different to encourage women?
I think just with any newcomer, you just want to make it in a welcoming, inclusive environment. Make it for anybody can ask their questions, and everyone feels comfortable and feels safe to play. And no one's trying to be competitive and mean. I've been in some draft rooms where people are just bullies, and they've been just plain mean. And like, that's not That's not what fantasy football should be. It's supposed to be fun. And I mean, it's a game. Yes, we're all competitive, but let's have fun along the way. It's no, I mean, there's so much variables. Like even the best analysts, they're gonna lose. No matter your best laid plans, they're gonna lose. So it's a fun strategy of taking like little Tetris blocks, and then you're just trying to adjust as you go and try not to crash and burn.
All right. Rick, you want to close us out?
Yeah. I mean, well, and one quick question though about your draft that you did. Could you give us a little
that's
bit
right.
about information since you did mention that draft? So how did you do?
I meant to ask about this. So I saw Chuck Bass post.
Oh yeah, that's what last night. Yes, a dynasty.
He said it was it really 1,000? Is he lying his dog off? That's what I thought.
I don't pay that kind of money.
That's what I thought. I was like, he made me. Yeah, I was like, knowing him, that's not true. There's no way that's true. So I want to ask you about Bowers in the first round. You like so I'm not. I don't know if I'm on board with this, but I want to this. I don't know. I want to. This is why I'm asking you. I want to hear your thought. I want to hear the thoughts of the people who are on board, so I can see.
Well, they said that was tight end premium, so that's why I went for him early. So they were doing with the scoring. So that part, and he's the guy in the Raiders right now. He's hot and on fire, and he was amazing last year. I think he's going to continue.
Okay, so I have him.
You think a downgrade or what?
I think maybe the same, but but first round in a super flex draft. This is what I'm saying. So I have him in Dynasty. Should I be selling him if he's going this high? I feel like I should be shopping him around like for a haul, obviously, not just to make a lateral move, but just to see, if I can. I mean, I need another quarterback. It's a super flex league.
Okay.
If I could get him for a quarterback straight up, I would probably do it.
Depends on your needs, yeah. But also just remember, tight end is a wasteland. So if you can get one of the top 3 guys, then you're golden.
And it is tight end premium. It is.
Oh, but if it's what's the quarterback scoring?
4 points for a pass, and it's 1.5 tight end reception.
And you don't have another good quarterback? What do you have for quarterback?
I have Anthony Richardson and Derek Carr. It's terrible.
Oh, geez. Oh, yeah, you need somebody because you can't rely on Richardson because he's going to compete with Daniel Jones. I
have him too. I have Daniel Jones too, so which is ironic. So that helps, I guess. It helps.
Yes, you got the Colts. You got the Colts locked down.
Yeah. We hope some guy come out of nowhere.
That's true too.
They both go down. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I'm a little bit more optimistic about Richardson, maybe because I have Richardson as my quarterback on one of my teams. But and if you've got Danny Jones as your backup, you almost have a whole quarterback there.
The team is really good, really stacked outside of the 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah.
What would be fun if they do a committee quarterback like they do with running backs, because that would be interesting with those 2 guys.
Team quarterback, yeah.
and I'd have to wait until the pregame report to see who's playing.
Maybe every other half, every other quarter.
Oh, every other quarter. Oh, okay. That would drive me nuts. I'd be making that trade. I'd be selling Bowers. See you later, buddy.
Thing is, Bowers is the generational tight end, and you'd have to hope you're going to be getting and again, if I've got like a Josh Allen or a Jalen Hurts or a Jaden Daniels, I'm not trading them for anything. So you're going to have to come down a level, and maybe you get Burrows for them, maybe. I don't know.
I like your Richardson car better. That's funny because you have Bo Nix and Michael Penix in front of it.
I did not do well with the quarterbacks. I don't know what I was doing.
No, you did good for waiting though. I thought getting Bo Nix right there in the 3rd round is pretty good. This is 3rd round reversal too. It looks like I like that. I'm a fan of 3rd round reversal.
But those are not typical quarterbacks I go for. It's off-brand. I'm like, what am I doing? But I guess that's what you do with these off-season before the NFL draft. You go wild and crazy and try different things.
We'll see if you can possibly build a good team around Bowers in the 1st round, right? I don't know. I still can't get on board. I don't think I'll be taking Bowers in the first round. I won't have a lot of Bowers this year. I don't think.
Okay, so if it gets to be November and Bowers is like off the charts,
Killing it, I know.
I'm gonna come. I'm gonna be like, "Hey, Joe, remember back in March?"
1,000+ yards, 10+ touchdowns.
What if I have like McBride? All right, my team has like a tight end that does.
Well, if you already have McBride, then yeah.
No, I know.
I
I understand, but first round is like, I don't know. That's up there for me for a tight end. I took Kelsey one year. It was a couple of years ago, and I paired him with Mahomes, and it still didn't work out. I was like, see, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I never ever take a tight end in the first round.
You were burned. You were burned by.
Yeah. But it was the year they were good, like, and it still didn't work. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, this has been a great show, and Rachel, really enjoyed getting a chance to meet you, even though it's still just virtual, but getting a chance to talk to you in virtual person. Really appreciate you coming on the show, and hopefully we'll get a chance to bring you back sometime in the future and chat some more. Can you remind the audience on the best way that they can follow you or get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Tootsiepop6, and then also at UnwindFF for the Unwind group if you want to reach me that way. And then for my written content over at Football Guys, we'll have the second part of the Women's Roundtable coming out very soon.
Well, again, it was just a fun show, and you are such a positive light that you helped make the show even more fun. So I appreciate you coming on. Next week, please join Joe and I. We're going to have our guest is the great Chuck Bass, and
can't wait for this one.
And so hopefully we'll be able to see you all back here next Tuesday, same time. We also have a number of other shows on the Sports Affiliation that want to be able to, encourage you to take a look at. On Sundays, we have JR, who does his TSA Hoops show, one of the best sources of information about the NBA, and it's a great, great show. On Tuesdays, I come back with the Give Back show, where we focus on and highlight charity leagues and charity events. Carla has her interview show, The Game Changers, on Wednesdays, and Carla's a great interviewer, and she has just the best guests that come on. So please look for that. And again, I'm sorry. And Monday nights we do
Monday. Let me pitch the Monday. I'm going to pitch the Monday one.
Go for it.
Monday is me and JC going forward. So if anybody wants to come on and guest on our Monday mock draft shows, we're currently doing Superflex Dynasty startups. Obviously, no trades, just a regular ADP setting. Superflex draft. We're looking for guests. It's going to be me and JC.
Awesome. And then, of course, we're back here again on Thursday. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the future. So JC, you want to take us out?